Before we begin to start, we have to be sanitary. My snips, I have multiple pairs of snips, but every pair of my snips gets used for multiple things. It gets used to harvest, they get used to cut dahlia tubers, they get used for cutting flower ends while I'm doing weddings. And so over the course of a few seasons, they've seen and touched a lot of different stuff and are susceptible to having viruses, bacteria, and disease on their sharp ends right here. And so we are going to be as sanitary as possible. We do not want our dahlia tubers to have a disease while in storage and then also then put into our soil next spring. So we need to keep our tools clean and sharp. So that's what we're going to do. As you can see here, I have my two snips. I have my bypass snips for the stems and anything that's really hard to cut. And then I have my small pointed ones here. You can also use a knife. I don't usually use them. I can get just about everything with these two. Here is my sharpener for sharpening the blades. We use Star San sanitizer. This is a food grade sanitizer that we've just reused year after year. I've got a mason jar that I'm going to dip after I'm done with each clump of dahlia. I dip my ends into this mason jar that I will have sanitary solution in. And then we have a tub here that I dip each and every single tuber in to make sure that if there's any sort of bacteria or virus or disease on the actual tuber, it will be hopefully killed when it's dipped into this water and a little bit of sanitation solution in there. And then I've got my Clorox wipes to wipe these guys down to make sure that they're not gunky and they're clean. All right, so I'm going to clean my tools and we can get started. Alrighty, so let's start with cleaning the blades. Well, actually kind of clean the whole tool, the blades and the handles. And this is really just to get like the sticky, gunky stuff off. All right, there, she's not sticky, which is so lovely. All right, let's take our sharpening tool, which is just, let's see if I can zoom in. There we go, a little bit better. So just a sharpening tool, and I'm going to sharpen my blade. And I sharpen both sides of my blade. These tools can be expensive. This pair of snips right here is about $35, with shipping probably closer to $40. So I definitely want to keep them in good condition for a long period of time. Now I'm only going to sharpen the one side of these bypass snips because, as you can see, this is a blunt edge. All right, so now that our tools are all clean, we are going to put the sanitation solution into our mason jar and into our tub. Again, the mason jar is to dip our tool blades into between each dahlia clump. And then once the clump is separated into individual tubers, we will put the individual tubers into a solution to kill any bacteria, virus, or disease that is laying on the surface of the tuber itself. We just do a little dash in this one because it's such a small amount of water, and then we do a bigger dash. Let's do a real quick anatomy of a dahlia tuber. For the growers out there who have done this a million times, they know. But for the new growers or for the gardeners who want to maybe increase their stock of dahlia tubers, you're not going to know this. So here we have a dahlia clump. This whole entire thing is a dahlia clump. This was the stem that was sticking out of the ground. So the soil level was right around here. And this was the main stalk. And these were separate little stalks or stems that went up. And as you saw in a video earlier, I cut them down. And then all this is underneath the ground. These are the roots that the dahlias have put on in order to grab nutrients and water. There's a lot missing because they break off a lot of the times when you pull them out of the ground. But you can see on each one of these tubers, they have some roots that are coming out of the bottoms of them. I've already mentioned this before, but I will, if you haven't watched my video before on pulling the dahlia out of the ground, then we will just go over this real quick. This is your mother tuber. The mother tuber is the tuber that you put into the ground earlier in the spring, and she not only produced this strong stem and multiple flowers for you, but she also then produced these babies. And the reason why I know it's the mother tuber is because she's darker. You can see she's got wrinkly skin, she's darkened, and she just doesn't look quite as young and viable as the others. And that is very typical in your mother tubers. Okay, so let's go over the real quick anatomy of a dahlia tuber. Here is a great example. This dahlia tuber, here is the body. From about here all the way down to the very end is the body of the tuber. This little area is called the neck, and this area up here is called the head, or this kind of bulbous area would be considered the head. Your job to split, and the point of splitting, is to divide these so that each tuber is completely whole. That means each tuber will have its body, its neck, and its head. And ideally, you'd love to have that little nodule right there. That's called an eye. Now, not always will you see the eyes, and depending on when you split the dahlias will determine if you can see them better or if they're harder to find. I like to split the dahlias in the fall time because usually you can see the eyes pretty well. If you wait long enough in the late winter, early spring, they usually start sending off eyes and they're much easier to see. But I just like to split them in the fall. That's just my way.